Welcome into Floyd Street's Finest. He is Holy Cross head coach, former Louisville assistant Mark Lieberman. I am Jack Grossman. Thanks so much for tuning in, Floyd Street's Finest, part of the Field of 68 podcast network. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, however you are consuming this. We're on Twitter. He's at Coach Lieberman. I'm at Jack Grossman 97. Also on Blue Sky at Jack Grossman. Coach, how you been, man? Team gearing up for the playoffs.
Yeah, we start playoffs start tomorrow night. Let me just say, Jack, you've gotten so good now at all the intros and getting all the Twitter handles, all the ways to watch or see the podcast, watch the podcast. You've grown exponentially as far as that goes. I'm really proud of you.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate
absolutely.
that. It's literally on my Google Doc where I put like my notes and stuff. I just have big, bold, don't forget to plug the podcast.
Whatever it takes. Listen, I have notes. I have copious amounts of notes for everything I do. In fact, and by the way, tremendous background you got. You got all the jerseys up there. I look like I'm in cell block C right now, but I'm in a little side room here at the school, so just to get a little privacy as we get this going.
Yeah. I moved apartments about a month ago, so I'm in a new spot. So I got a little bit of a background here. I gotta figure out, because I got some bobbleheads. Like, I got my Pitino bobblehead. I got a Cookie Lady bobblehead, and I got a California one. I got
right.
Yeah, I gotta figure out where to get everything in there.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. Get a nice shelf going, and get to the angle. So
yeah, that'd be good. That's what I need. But anyways, who'd you guys draw in the districts?
We got Fairdale tomorrow night. So we played them a week or so ago, and I always like to. It's good in high school, especially. You can get film and get feel for who you're playing, and we're extremely young, but finished the year 16-11, and now it's just a matter of with a really young team and a new program and new coaches, everything. So really proud. The guys play hard. Now it's just a matter of making sure they understand all the meticulous details, which I am drives me to the point of craziness to make sure they understand every little thing, from angles to positioning and whatnot, just like I am with when I'm coaching in college. It's the same thing. And just that's why I appreciate a nice segue into watching Louisville, because just so many details are just so much fun. I put out some clips from the Notre Dame game, and just watching them on the offensive end and defensive end was just tremendous.
Yeah, we can start with Notre Dame, because I know you haven't had a chance in this space anyways to react to that. That was a game that Louisville really controlled the last 32-ish minutes of that game after they were down early, a 13-0 run midway through the first half, really seized control for them. What have you seen? Because Notre Dame, I think, provided a little bit of a challenge in terms of, I think Micah Shrewsbury is a really good coach. Marcus Burton's a really, really good player.
Yeah.
But I thought defensively, this is where we kind of see, Louisville can win games in different ways. Defensively, Louisville was incredible in that Notre Dame game. And then you flip the switch to Florida State on Saturday, where they really had to win that game with their offense, because they kind of struggled, especially the last 23, 24 minutes or so of that game with Florida State's athleticism on the defensive end.
Yeah, look, Florida State's extremely athletic, and they were making some plays. I don't think some people ask me if they were just playing with their food because they're playing a Florida State. They feel they're going to win, and they're not as digged in from a defensive standpoint. There might be a little to that, but at the same time, it's a great sign when you're gonna not be as sharp with all the little details defensively as they were, I felt, against Notre Dame, and still be able to come out and win because the offense was just there. It's one of those games, and that happens in basketball so much. And you hark back to Notre Dame. I mean, it was 38-35, Jack, and just watch them just get a score, a stop, a score. Let me just point out, there was a possession. It's 38-35, and I believe it's a situation where Chucky gets they reject a ball screen against Chucky, and they're going downhill, and you watch Rain Smith and Terrence Edwards come off the corner, but stunt and swipe. And it's an X-out situation, which means Rain Smith is kind of compromised, has to help on the drive. And Roos does an unbelievable job of Xing out and closing out to the corner, and understanding that as a freshman. A lot of times bad things can happen when the ball's in flight, and he's not watching the flight of that basketball to the corner as Rain Smith comes over to help. He is already moving on the flight of that pass. And with his high hands and his length, he bothers that shot, and who comes up with a rebound in traffic is Rain Smith, and they go down and score in the next possession. To have a freshman do that, if they hit that shot again, it's back and forth, and they're feeling good. What a great job by him. And it's just there's a bunch of possessions against Notre Dame where just defensively, it's just so much fun to watch. These guys are on a string. They're connected. They're moving on the flight of the path. They're stunting. They're swiping. They're in position. They're in a stance. I'm a big believer. I grade our players. I always have, even when I was at Louisville. I grade players on film and in stance, in efficiency, in head on a swivel, in hand positioning. That's something that I'm a big believer in. And you watch Louisville, and as far as my grades personally, it's just they're always in the upper echelon. They're always in the high 80s or low 90s as far as from a team standpoint with all those things combined. And you just watch them. It's just it's fun. And the other thing is just to say that their offense, they're constantly moving. There's so many situations where you don't even realize they're occupying guys with hammer screens on the backside, and guys are driving. This is never a team that ball watches. It really is very impressive.
Yeah, and it was something where I thought the defensive intensity carried early into the Florida State game. You look at the first, again, to the under four timeout, the first 16 minutes, Louisville, I thought, was doing a phenomenal job pressuring the basketball, really forcing Florida State into uncomfortable situations, keeping them out of that pick and roll that they were so successful with later in the game. And they forced, what was it? I mean, like 14 turnovers, was it? Yes, 14 turnovers in the first 16 minutes. And
I was hoping to beat you to the punch with the stat line as I'm looking at it here, but yes, 14.
It was 14 turnovers in the first 16 minutes. Louisville had 15 points off those turnovers early in the game. And when Louisville's shooting the ball like they were as well, I mean, that's where you end up with a 39-19 lead, right? I mean, that's right. where you have that complimentary basketball going both ways for them. I thought Louisville was great early on. I don't know if it was Florida State's athleticism, a commitment to going more downhill, getting into that pick and roll a lot more often, or just as you said, like Louisville kind of played with their food a little bit. But it did kind of seem like Louisville took their pedal off the gas a little bit on the defensive end, especially early in the second half. And I think the turnovers, again, is a great stat. 14 the first 16 minutes, only 3 the last 24 minutes, and only 2 in the second half. Points off turnovers, a little like 15 by that under 4 timeout in the first half, only had 2 the rest of the game. I think that's because the pace slowed down a little bit, got to more what Florida State wanted to do, whereas Louisville was really dictating things early. And that's where the Seminoles really able to battle back, cut the lead to 6 a couple times midway through the second half, and go from that Louisville's going to blow the doors open off these guys to all right, you gotta battle here a little bit and just kind of survive almost.
Well, that's where your offense can help your defense because Florida State was scoring in the second half, so they can get back, they can get set, and they're not in a situation where they're compromised in transition. Because there's times where in the first half you just saw Louisville just get out and go in and be able to get, whether it was just Hadley backing down guys or just fantastic, like Terrence Edwards just making a move, just a wraparound pass from left to right to get in the lane is that's one of the, and I always tell, I'm a big believer in going behind the back in the open court, but sometimes you just have to let players be who they are. And even though Terrence Edwards is going to use a myriad of dribble moves, he's still going to get where he needs to go. So he's the antithesis of kind of what you teach sometimes the players, but he gets in great position. He does a great job. He's a good passer and all those type of things. But it's just, look, it's human nature as well. You have a 14-point lead at the half. You're getting anything you want. You've had that big lead. You're up by 20. And no matter what, you're on this win streak. These are still young men. And these are still, we take it for granted sometimes. They're still in a situation where, okay, yes, Florida State could get pissed off and say, you know what, we're not going down like this. We need to compete. And it's just, if we had that elixir or understood that as coaches, this would be an easy job because just the mental framework of understanding, okay, we had this lead and then they just chip into it. This is good for them. This is good for them to understand, hey, this is an athletic team. And to, again, survive it and score 89 points, 45 in the first half, 44 in the second half. I mean, and sometimes you're going to have to win games like that. We've both seen that, right? In a tournament, there's going to be games where this team is on fire. They're making shots. But you know what? We're going to be efficient on the offensive end as well and win a shootout. And it's going to happen, even with really good defensive teams.
And there are, Pat Kelsey's going to see that tape and he's going to, not be happy that they gave up
Hmm.
however many points it was in the second half. Gave up 28 points in the paint. Florida State was 20 of 23 on dunks and layups in the game. So they were getting
Yeah.
whatever they wanted around there. They were 68% from inside the arc in the second half. Really just were able to drive the paint. That's something where you don't like to see it. You can go back and say, hey, guys, we have this on tape. You got to get back to what we were doing in that Notre Dame game and throughout the rest of this win streak here. Is there anything that Florida State was doing with that pick and roll game or just their ability to get into the paint that does worry you? Or is this all stuff that you think that can be corrected on film? And the fact that, again, that Florida State, third tallest team in the country, and just as Leonard Hamilton's teams have always been just upper echelon, extremely athletic and hard to deal with from that standpoint.
Well, your latter point right there is just how that's the MO for Florida State, right? Long, athletic, and just they can create things just because of what they can do from a size standpoint. And look, they're a more athletic team than the Louisville squad, but I don't think there was anything on watching that film and saying, okay, this is going to be a problem for Louisville moving forward, because there was a lot of little things I saw. They're a little late on some of the coverages, guys off the ball. Some guys were getting chipped that were dodging the feet. There was little things that I could see that it's not going to be all right. This is the formula that we're going to be able to attack Louisville. I wasn't saying, all right, this is the formula to how you're going to beat them. It was just, look, it was a situation where guys were, I talked earlier about being in a stance and so on. It's almost like, all right, we have this big lead. Sometimes they're coasting and so on. You also mentioned the fact about film. Believe me, Coach Kelsey and his staff, that was probably clipped up every defensive possession and absolutely just killed these guys about those type of details. Because if you look back to all the previous games, this team gets down and they guard and they get in a stance. They're in position. On the ball makes you good. Off the ball wins championships, and they're so good off the ball. And this game, I think they were it was just almost that little split second of just more reacting than initiating what they're going to do, because they initiate a lot of things, whether they're changing how they're going to guard a ball screen in different things. And I told you about like Chucky, it's hard because he really blows so many things up where, it's just one of those things where I don't think it's something that people or Louisville fans need to be overly concerned with. And believe me, that staff is probably showed that film for about 2 hours, all those defensive possessions in the second half.
Yeah, I'd say offensively too, Chucky kind of played the role of closer in this one. He had a little bit of a James Harden stat line, 29 points on 5 field goals.
You go 17 for 19 from the free throw line. That's going to do it, right?
Yeah,
So
you look at his, because I pulled it up watching the game and I was like, man, it doesn't feel like he has 29. You look at it, it's like, okay, 17, 19 free throws, that makes sense. You look at the last 652 of the game when Florida State got within 66-60. They had that play. They kind of capped a little 6-0 spurt where Hadley gets a block on one end. Chucky
mm-hmm.
has the turnaround jumper to put him up to put him up 12 again. And from that point on, Chucky had 15 of his 29, and 9 of those points came at the free throw line, which is just, I mean, that's, you look at the 3 true outcomes that we talk about so much in baseball, the home run, strikeout, walks, the kind of, 3 true outcomes in basketball, dunk layups, free throws, and 3-pointers. The free throw is efficient. You get to the line, there's no one defending you. And that was, it's not the most visually pleasing ways always to see people score. There's the whole free throw merchant thing, and Chucky hasn't had that type of stat lines all year, but it really felt like it was okay. We'll give the ball to Chucky. Florida State fouls a lot. We know Florida State fouls a lot because they play aggressive and try to use that athleticism. How do we get the 85% free throw shooter at the free throw line over and over again? And late in the game, that's what Louisville was able to do as they won that 13-4 run after Florida State had it at 66-60. And from that point, it's kind of like, okay, you just coast the rest of the way here. Florida State got back within 6 once, but it was only a minute 35 left. That shows like, all right, you survived the punch. You locked in on defense for a couple more minutes, and we're able to push the lead back out to 15 to where you could avoid the crap, what the hell just happened here type of moment. and I thought that's, Chucky realizing the situation, realizing that, okay, we need someone to take over. He's been in college basketball for 4 years now. He can make those savvy plays, get to the charity stripe. And I thought that was just really, that's the leader there to bring the guys home when you need it most.
it was similar to the North Carolina game when he closed out from the free throw line.
Yeah.
And believe me, I'm sure something was mentioned in the huddle about when there's not going to be another Georgia Tech where we have a
Yeah.
lead and we let it slip away. Dwayne Wade used to talk about great guards know how to get fouled. And that's something about Chucky. He understands, even if they're trying to foul or whatnot, he understands body position, he understands where to go, understands all those type of things. But you look at it, and one of the rules in coaching is you always want to make more free throws than the other team attempts. And you see it. They're just, for a team that does foul and you go to the line and you shoot, what was it, 80 something percent from the free throw line, and you're making those and you make 24 and they're only shooting 17. So like for me, that's a great sign to close out the game, finish the job, and get out, survive, and advance. Everything is not going to ever be a thing of beauty. We see that all the time in athletics. So for this team to survive another one and get through it, now I don't want to say survive because they had this game under control. Yeah, Florida State cut into it, but again, impressive to just win another way for an example of, okay, I'm just telling you, Jack, those type of things. This game will be mentioned before the ACC tournament into the NCAA tournament. Hey, yeah, we weren't perfect. We understand that. We are going to chase perfection, but we know if we're getting teams are making shots and they're beating it, we know we can be efficient on the offensive end as well. We're not hanging our hat on that, but because they're so efficient, this team doesn't just rely on jump shots. This team relies on just great ball movement, screening, and cutting more than just about, look, you take a Drake, you take a Creighton. I get it. This team is as fun to watch from an offensive standpoint as any team in the country because of the movement, because of the screening, because of the actions. And there's always reads. So to tell your team, you know what, Jack, we don't have to win every game from a defensive standpoint. There's gonna be slippage. We might be in foul trouble. We know we can score.
Yeah, and when you win games different ways, that's how you make runs come March. I mean, that's how it happens because you're going to face a team, probably a little bit better than Florida State in terms of Florida State's 16-12 after losing to North Carolina on Monday night, and they're not going to be in the NCAA tournament. But you're going to face an uber athletic team one night. Then you'll face a team that, maybe a Drake where they'll slow the game down and you got to win in the half court. You play a Texas A&M where they're really going to mug things up, or in Arizona that wants to get, well, not as much this year, but wants to get up and down a little bit more, or you're going to face all these different teams come the NCAA tournament. You got to be prepared to win in all these different styles. And while the ACC isn't a good league this year, I think we have seen where Louisville's had to play a lot of different styles, which I think will help prepare them for March. And also, that's where the non-conference will help them as well. Even though they didn't win a lot of those games, they were trying to still figure themselves out, playing games like a Tennessee or a Kentucky, two very opposite ends of the spectrum of what you want or of what you see from an opposition, or a West Virginia is you got to turn things into a rock fight, or an Oklahoma is on the bubble. You're playing all these different styles of play, and Louisville throughout these last couple months have proven, okay, we can win in a track meet, we can win in a rock fight, we can win with our offense, we can win with our defense. And I think those are things that you look at them. Right now they're kind of projecting that 7 seed line, which is not a great draw. And that's, again, mostly due to the ACC, if nothing else, and not winning as many as those games you would have liked early on. But I think mostly due to the ACC, because in a normal year, what's Louisville now? 14-2 in league. If you're 14-2 in the ACC, in almost any other year other than the past 2-3 years, you're probably going to be on the 1 or the 2 line. And yeah, Louisville's going to be on the 7, probably battling to try to get a 6. But when you can win different ways, that's, even if you're underseeded like that, that's where you have a chance to make a run to a second weekend, an Elite Eight, or if all the chips fall right. I'm not going to sit here and proclaim Louisville's going to be in the Final Four, but the matchups break well and you play well, you shoot the ball well, you can go a long way next month.
It's you talking about the ACC. It's just wild. It's like like we're in the bizarro world. Because,
yeah, we really
as
are.
you mentioned, 14-2 in the ACC, and they're not going to be as a 2 or 3, possibly a 1, and so on. But they're beating these teams handily, right? These aren't games that 1 or 2 and last possessions and so on. They're handily beating these teams.
Like they beat Florida State by 8, and it's like, what the heck happened? Why did you not win it by 18?
Exactly. And I remember we were talking about from the summer, and I said, look, this team has all the ingredients to be a really good team. We were talking about the Wake Forests, the Pitts, and that kind of stuff. Can they overcome that and get into the upper tier and be a double bye team? I watching basketball as I have, and unfortunately for as long as I have, I just see so many components of a team that can make a really, really long run. And we talked about it. I said they're a tournament team when we were talking about the summer. I said just watching them against the teams that they played. You don't take that part. Watch this team play. Watch their effort. Watch the things that they're doing. All the intangibles that this team does so well, and they're only going to get better. And now, just watching them ascend and so on, they enjoy each other on the floor. I love that component, which is you take away the analytics. You watch them. You can tell if players in a team like playing together and love that, understand how to share the basketball and just do all the little things. And I go back to, again, that Roos play, that people can't understand how big that is, to X out, to scramble out when another player is helping, where, I'm like, especially for a freshman to understand that, shows you how well this team is taught, how understanding all the details, and that's going to carry over. And I'm telling you, like, when they get to the ACC tournament, I really would love to see them get another shot at Duke, because I just think that it's going to be a situation where it's going to be nip and tuck. It'll be right down to it. This team is really, really good, Jack.
Yeah, and looking at that ACC tournament, this is one of the other things we talked about over the summer when we got the full schedule was, well, the schedule is incredibly front-loaded, but you have this in the last, in January and February, where
I
9 of
remember
their
you talking
14
about
games
that.
are on
Yep.
the road. And I was like, they got to get through the early season, give them a chance to get in the NCAA tournament picture, but then it'll be, can you avoid pitfalls in these games, like the last one really being Virginia Tech on, well, tonight on Tuesdays. We're recording this Tuesday
Right.
morning, but you've avoided that with the Boston Colleges, the Notre Dames, the Miamis, all these games where it's like you've been traveling on the road. You've played a lot of games away from the Yum Center. Turns out this is a really damn good road basketball team. I mean, they're a game away from finishing this stretch 13-1, which is pretty good. I mean, that goes back. That's credit to the players and the coaching staff of saying we're not going to lose our edge. We're not going to play with our food too much. We've seen once or twice, the end of the Wake Forest game, and then obviously the Georgia Tech game a little bit. But we're going to stay locked in for the most part. We're going to take care of business. And yeah, these teams may not be the top of the line ACC what we're used to, but we're still going to treat them with respect and come out and in a lot of these cases just go out and pump teams. But I'll let you speak on that real quick.
No. Listen, you look back on it, it's like, oh, well, here, all right. They get through Clemson and Virginia, and a great win against North Carolina, but up they're at Pittsburgh and they're going to the zoo, and they just handle them, right? All right, Syracuse, not their best squad, but they're going to go in there, just absolutely destroy Syracuse. And then you have Virginia, and then, all right, well, here it is, SMU. Here's the one where they're going to come down to earth, and it is absolutely a demolishing.
A bludgeoning.
Just a bludgeoning. Any other synonym that you can think of is what happens in that game, and then it just keeps going. And then there's the lead against Georgia Tech, and what happens? They respond and just absolutely obliterate Boston College, and then Miami, and then NC State, and go down and play maybe defensively one of their. I just thought against Notre Dame they were just as efficient as can be, and then you come back and you don't play very well in the second half defensively. And you still have a 14-point lead, and you still win by 8. And we're sitting here, bemoaning the fact that they had some slippage, and not really. But again, I don't underestimate this team in any capacity, and I just think it's going to just carry over, and just the way they're going. And you talked about it. That stretch is over, and they've got, after Virginia Tech, it's 3 home games, and now just get yourself, and that's a huge component of it too. Now you get your team, and they're sleeping in their rooms. They're comfortable. It's not the travel component. I just think it's set up perfectly for this team to make a really good run in March.
Yeah, and you look at, I think these next couple weeks, obviously, easy to say, very important. But if Louisville needs to continue that mindset the next 4 games to close out the regular season, because as we said, they're a 7th seed despite all that work that they've done. That's kind of where they're trending towards right now.
Mm-hmm.
if they need to take care of business to, if nothing else, stay on that 7 line, because my God, you want to stay out of that 8-9 game this year with how dominant the 1 seeds have been in college basketball. That's one thing that could really stunt a chance at a run, is if you have to play at Auburn or a Duke. Well, you wouldn't play Duke as the same conference, but an Auburn or an Alabama or a Florida in the second round. That you need to avoid that. The twos aren't great either. You would really love to avoid Houston and Iowa State,
Man,
I would say,
I
but
watched Houston last night. Ooh, I've
oh,
watched a
they are
couple of their
so
games, and man,
good.
it's just it's Bobby Hurley just said it's like they got 6 players on the floor. I would say 7. It is just as there's every time you drive, there's eyes on you, there's gaps closed. It's incredible, and they're so physical. They bump every cutter. They bump you on the drive with high hands. It's just, man. I mean,
Yep.
this team, and he's got the group this year where I think they offensively they can put some points on the board as well.
Yeah, I love LJ Cryer, man.
He's something
He's
else, isn't
found
he?
his stride the last few weeks when he's shooting the ball like he is. It's so fun to watch. Uzan has really come on the last couple months, and yeah, they can still throw the ball to Jawan Roberts to get that little lefty hook that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of unstoppable anytime they want as well. That's without, Sharp was hurt for a while. Arsenault had taken a big step like they were expecting, and they're still getting more offensive production than what we
Right?
thought. So just what if you get those two guys going in the next couple of weeks? I mean, it's just it's completely scary how good that Houston team is. You would like to avoid them as well if you're Louisville. But the easy way to do that is if they could get to the 6 line, maybe even the
Right.
5 line. And what they need to do is, one, you can't have any screw ups this last couple weeks. You got to take care of business. Then you look at the ACC tournament. I have a projected bracket right now. This, God knows, do not take this as gospel. Because so much can change at this point. But Louisville basically has the 2 seed wrapped up if they can win out, pretty much. I don't know how it would change if Duke were to lose to North Carolina, what a 3-way tie between them, Louisville and Clemson would look like. But let's just assume it's a very dangerous thing to do that Duke, Louisville, and Clemson all went out. If you look at Torvik, if you base every game off of Torvik for the rest of the year, there's a great website called MRED's bracket predictors for conference tournament brackets that you can plug in every game you want. It'll spit out a bracket for you. Right now, if everything were to go the way Torvik expects it would, so Louisville would win all 4 of their games, Clemson Duke again would win out. Louisville would be the 2 seed, and they would play the winner of Stanford, who would be the 7 seed, and then the winner of Cal and Virginia Tech, the 10 and the 15 seed. And if they were to win that game, they would get likely either Clemson or UNC, could technically also get Florida Tech or Florida State or Virginia
Mm-hmm.
as well. But if you get a path of Stanford, then Clemson or UNC, and then Duke in the final, if you would really want Clemson again because that's a quad 1 game. I think Carolina's in the top 50 in that. I can confirm that real quick. But if you could get Stanford would be quad 2, Clemson would be quad 1, and then be competitive against Duke in a final. Not you're let's be honest, I don't think you're winning the game just because Duke is that damn good. That's nothing against Louisville, but you're playing the game in
Yeah.
Charlotte, and I think Louisville could win the game. I wouldn't pick them to win the game. I'll put it that way. And if Louisville wins the AC title and beats Duke, you can put that old takes exposed, whatever the heck you want to. But if Louisville's able to do that, would that be enough to get them onto like a 5-6 platform? Maybe not a 5, but could they get to that 6 line? I think would be really, really good for them. You're looking at the 3 seeds. Texas Tech is really, really good, but beatable. Wisconsin,
Mm-hmm.
really, really good, but beatable. Kentucky, really, really good, but beatable and injured right now. If you could get into that spot, that's where I think you have a much better shot of, okay, you're getting a 3 seed in the second round. Those teams are a lot more beatable than, say, Houston or an Iowa State. And not to say Louisville can't beat those teams. I think they can. And especially, you look at the other 2 seeds right now. I think Michigan State is beatable. They can't shoot the ball. It's been incredible how good they've been, despite the fact they
Amazing.
can't shoot the ball. But that's a team that I think is beatable. And Texas A&M, I think Louisville would struggle with the rebounding. But if they could hold their own on the glass and take care of the ball, that's a team that does not shoot the ball well. So those are teams where I'm like, okay, maybe you have a little bit of a shot there. St. John's, I think, would be a nightmare matchup with how much they pressure you defensively, and that would be just the whole Pitino aspect would be great television, but would be really, really cool to see how that would play out on the court. But if they could get to that 6 line, I think would be probably their best chance right now.
And you feel if that Duke game is competitive, that's where they're going to end up as a 6.
I
Take
I
out
would
take out the
hope,
numbers, and what would
yeah,
you think? Yeah, I would think they could even go as high as maybe a 5. I think they can. Look, I think if that game let's see how they roll through the ACC as well. If those games
right.
are not as competitive and they get to the championship and they're playing, and as you mentioned, beating a Clemson would be helpful for them. And you get to a Duke, and all of a sudden it's nip and tuck. Yeah, I think a 6 is or a 5 is even a possibility. I really do.
Which a 5 would be great. I mean, it's. I think what's tough is we've seen, like when they did the top 16 reveal a week and a half ago. Ennis and I talked a little bit about this last week. Of the first thing that was out of Bubba Cunningham's mouth, anytime they said, Auburn's number 1 overall, Alabama's number 2 overall, Florida's number 4 overall, why Alabama was ahead of Duke, was first thing out of his mouth. Quad 1 win-loss record. How many quad 1 wins do you have? And Louisville sitting there with just 4, if they could get a 5th, that would be great. But you're looking at, I'll pull up the net real quick to kind of look at some of the other
Mm-hmm.
teams they're competing with. But go home. Sorry, this is bad radio at the moment. But Louisville would be sitting at 5-5 if they were to beat
This
Clemson
is
and
why
lose
you
to
need to
Duke.
have the bobbleheads up so people can
Yeah.
look at those while we're looking at numbers.
But you're looking at teams that are kind of in that 5 seedish range. I mean, Kansas has 5. They're dropping right now, so maybe Louisville could pass them. Uh, UCLA has 7. Mississippi State has 7. Marquette has 5. Ole Miss has 5. You look at this, maybe they could get. A&M has 6. Maybe they could get to a 5. Kind of looking at it a little bit closer,
Mm-hmm.
which would be very beneficial for them. Obviously, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say that, but you look at it and say, okay, it also depends, what does everyone else do as well. Does, Illinois kind of kept a free fall to where they're probably going to be seated behind Louisville now. Purdue's in a little bit of a free fall to where they were as a 2, I believe, a couple weeks ago. They've lost 4 in a row now. Now, do those teams? Can you pass some of those teams? Can you pass, some teams in the Big 12 or a Mississippi State maybe in the SEC? It becomes tough, and we don't really know what's going to happen on that point. But I think Louisville seems kind of steady as a 7. That's kind of just where they've been the last couple weeks. And would a win against Clemson be able to push them up multiple seed lines? I don't know about that, but I think that's where they could get into that 6 spot.
Think about perspective, the fact that we're even talking about will they get a 6,
Yeah.
a 5, and honestly, over what's gone on, and look, we've talked about it at nauseum, but my point is, how great is it to talk about? Well, maybe they could push up to a 6, to a 5. Where are they going to be seated, and so on. I'm sure it just makes every Louisville fan's heart just swell in enjoyment and fun and excitement and anticipation about this because of what come back to the city. And I know you were here last week and whatnot, and just the vibes
Oh yeah.
of the people. You could just feel the energy of the fact that Louisville basketball is relevant and actually matters. And it's a great feeling.
It is, and it's a hell of a lot more fun than wondering who the coach is going to be next year.
What
That
we're
is,
talking about right now and all that kind of stuff and our quad 1s and whatnot is
yeah.
fantastic. It
Here's
really
what we'll
is.
do. Next week we'll come back. I'll give myself a homework assignment. I love doing these anyways, and I want to try to get it today. I just didn't have time, but
You
we'll
gonna
push
test
it to
me
next
again?
week.
You gonna
Oh
quiz me?
yeah, oh, we're gonna do some blind resumes. We'll do
That's
some bubble ones, but we'll also we'll mix in some of those middle lines too, and try to help
Gotcha.
that. See if we can sort out something for Louisville there, which will be fun. I love doing those, man. Those are
I
so
know
much
you
fun.
do, Jack, and I gotta do my prep work, so I'll be
So
texting you for sure.
so before we get out of here, I do want to ask you. So we mentioned
Hmm.
St. John's, Rick Pitino a little bit earlier. They're going to win the Big East in his second year, but I want to ask you about kind of the dynamic between we talked about it when he went back to Big Blue Madness in Rupp Arena,
Hmm.
and embraced their Louisville fans, players were mad, all that. So I don't want to say all the players were mad, but like there was like, why are you going back there type of deal. But then we've seen the last couple of weeks, he has the video in the Yum Center when they're honoring the 2005 Final Four team, and he gets a standing ovation. He had Jeff Brom and the Brom family up
Yep.
to MSG over the weekend when they
Hmm.
whacked UConn. Rick Pitino's the dude. He's the unicorn that has been able to. This is kind of what I said and thought at the time. Like Rick's loyal to his guys. You know that better than almost anyone. To where it's not really a UK or a UofL thing. It's that he's loyal to the people that he's coached or been involved with. We've seen that with Pope, as we said when you were coaching the TBT team, how he supported you guys. And we saw the 2005 Final Four team stuff for sure. But he has both fan bases in his hand now to where he's won. He's loved in both cities. He's loved by both fan bases. He has played it to where he is the one guy that has crossed that bridge and is gratified by both the Louisville and the Kentucky fans. And only Rick Pitino can pull that off.
Man, you look back to 7, 8 years ago and where it was and where he is now, and think about that. And again, I think that was the G-rated version of the halftime speech that's gone viral everywhere. If that comes out 6 or 7 years ago, there's a way to spin it that it's toxic. That's not the way you talk to people. When that's the norm. And
heck, even last year when he killed him in the press conference, and then they caught fire after that, people were like, "This is toxic," but that's how it goes.
Very Mick Cronin, Mick Cronin, you know who he worked for as well, and why Coach has an affinity for him as well. But look, that's what he's done, and no matter what, you could talk about what he's added and NIL, all that nonsense. It's just the fact that what he does to get his players to compete and play that hard and understand what it takes to win a basketball game, whether it's conditioning, whether it's effort, whether it's defense. And that's what he's always believed in. Like we're 2.5 hours into a practice and he just yells at me, "Mark, get the defense going." Like, all right, we're 2.5 hours in, and just, if there's any slippage, he's just noticing it, whether he's on the coaches, the players, and just wanting constant effort. And no one does it better as far as getting teams to play hard and being in shape and understanding that. And that's why his teams, when they get to the tournament, can make a run.
Yeah, and they definitely have a chance to make a run. I mean, RJ Luis is balling. Davion Smith is back and healthy now. Dari Richmond. That was another peak Rick Pitino thing. Davion Smith's going to be out for all this time, and he missed like 2 games. He was back. The hyperboles are just, I love it. It's
the
great.
Best.
But,
and like Richmond's ailing, and we can't practice him. He probably practices for 2 hours and 9 minutes instead of 2 hours and 15 minutes, and gets a 6-minute break at some point. That's probably what's going on there. I'll have to text some of the staff and find out exactly what the skinny is.
What'd you think of the comment where he said that Richmond was the most injured player that he's ever coached? And then I saw someone quote tweet with like the Lisa Simpson meme of Lisa crying. Goes Kevin Ware reading this text. I was like, oh God.
Listen, you said it for hyperbole.
Yeah,
there's nobody better.
Yeah, but they could go. I mean, they don't shoot the ball great. When they shoot the ball, they did against UConn. I mean, they were 8 of 16 from 3 in the first half. No one's beating them with the way they defend. But
and the way they get second shots, and their athleticism is. And he talks about Richmond. I mean, that kid is just phenomenal, and they just have so many weapons. And Smith coming back healthy, he's a dynamic guard. I have that, and a guy that can just break a play and make a play. You need that, and look, I wouldn't underestimate anything, because I know that team. I've been there. I understand. We've been to a Final Four as part of one of his coaches, so I understand the details that will be going into the tournament. Nobody's going to be more prepared than St. John's going into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and I think that would be one where I would love the storylines of it if we had that as a 3-6 matchup in the second round. I don't know how much Louisville would love that matchup with, even if they won the game, just how much of a grinding physical game that would be for them to play. I mean,
that's a fun one to watch, though.
It would be a fun one to watch for sure. And, the committee has a track record. I'm not one that believes in they put these matchups together on purpose type of thing.
I am.
You are?
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's no doubt that they know there's a storyline there. I 1,000% believe it goes back to Minnesota playing Louisville. Okay. It does not matter. There's a storyline to be had. There always is.
There would be some full circle moment of the last 2 times Louisville would be in the tournament. They would face a Pitino. Guess that was the last time Louisville was there was when they played Richard.
Maybe
But
we'll get New Mexico versus Louisville. We'll see.
New Mexico's a damn good team too.
They
I mean,
are.
Richard's done a really good
He
job
sure
with
has.
them.
Yes.
Them, especially to not have JT Toppin and losing a couple guys the way
And
they've
Mashburn as
responded.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, Jamal Mashburn Jr. I'm
Hmm.
trying to remember where did
He's
he
at
go?
Temple. He's at
That's
Temple.
right. That's right. All right, man. He was really good for New Mexico last year too. But Donovan Dent's great. The pit is electric. Mountain
Hmm.
West too. I mean, they're going. Utah State's great. San Diego State's lost some games, but they should be in the NCAA tournament. It's a good league again, man. It is.
No
I like
doubt.
I like Jared Calhoun as under the radar name for the Indiana job, by the way. Like I don't. We'll see what happens on that front. But anyways, that's all we got for today. For Coach Lieberman, I'm Jack Grossman. We'll catch you next time. Louisville taking on not Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech tonight. I'm trying to win a 16th game in their last 17, but we'll catch you next time reacting to that in the game for the weekend as well here on Floyd Street's Finest. Thanks for tuning in.